So
that's good. That's good. Do you find this week different to previous weeks?
it's the first time I've experienced this week before.
Yeah. Okay.
What about you?
It's been a funny week. Up and down, and last week I just like I was really down. I wasn't feeling 100%, and
I don't know about where you are, but the weather here has been absolutely oppressive. It's just been stinking hot and humid, and just, you wake up in the middle of the night in a pool of sweat, and it's just been disgusting,
It's been the same here, Don. We've been predicted now by the end of this week, our hottest month, which is always February, is going to reach record highs, and for the month, an accumulative record amount of days over 40 degrees. And yeah, it could be that. It could be that even though I sit in air conditioning, it's still, the air is different. Okay.
Yeah, it is, actually. It is.
Yeah.
So, but I just find with like broken sleep, and everyone seems cranky that you meet and everything. So I don't know.
Yeah. Sleep is difficult, and also I find myself with aches and pains where I don't really expect them.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And then you start having all sorts of thoughts. It's getting old, but it's not that. You don't have to have aches and pains when you get old.
No, that's right.
So
I don't know whether it's because of the temperature you change what you eat or what it is, but anyway, as you say, it's not pleasant.
I don't think I eat consciously.
Yeah, actually, you do actually.
Yeah. So I cover all the categories, and I get diversity in the amount of different plants or that I eat. It's a main thing, and so no, I don't think it's got to do with eating. But when you get down in the dumps, you start imagining all sorts of things.
Yeah, that's true. Your mind can take you to all sorts of weird places, can't it?
It does. It does. You see, and that's as we discussed before, that's consciousness. And that's where you are now. And so your mind imagines things, and as you say, takes you to those places, and then probably attracts you to certain aches and pains and things like that.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a physiological response to what's occupying your mind, isn't it?
Yeah, there has to be. It's all connected. It's all one.
Yeah.
And so over the decades, we've been talking about try and convince your mind by repeating certain slogans or and now we know that's a lot of tripe. Okay. So yeah. So I suppose one asks, what's the answer then? What's the answer? Okay. And have you got any answer?
No, well, actually, as you were talking, I was just thinking, like, is it possible to control your own thoughts? Probably not, really, I guess, isn't it? It's always how you respond to it, I guess, isn't it?
It's always how you respond to them. You're quite right. And you can pretend, well, not pretend, okay? You can, use your thoughts to imagine, what God is, for example. Okay, and then you get all tied up into quantum physics and dimensions, and you think, oh hell no, no, this is not on. Let's just stay in the physical. Then the physical, in actual fact, consists of a whole lot of different dimensions, and they're all physical dimensions because you still keep some physical image. So what happens after that? Okay, that's where maybe quantum physics comes into some sort of reality for this particular example. So,
because some of the the ancient sort of spiritual texts seem to take the line of reality is the spiritual dimension. Outside of the spiritual dimension, it's not real. So,
yeah.
And I think the logic underpinning that is that that God is the only reality. So.
Yeah, you and I agree with that, and but the point is that we here now, in whatever you want to call it, okay, for our thought patterns and for our subconscious and our day-to-day actions, it is reality.
So what do you think about the logic, the sequence where you start to worry about something and that brings you to an intersection where you say, okay, I'll try and fix it, or no, the other way to turn into the intersection is to say, I'll leave it in God's hands.
Yeah, I am a great believer, and we're coming back to that word belief that we spoke about before, but I'm a great believer in this, whatever this reality is that you take action. Okay, you need to take action. If you're going to resign from your job, then you resign from your job. Okay, if you're going to start a hobby, then start a hobby. Okay, and get on with it and put a lot of effort into it.
Yeah.
Because that way will lead you to another place in this unreality, if you like. But if it's positive, like moving forward and taking another job, or moving forward and deciding to grow a garden, then that's positive action. We have to. If we don't, I think I've just got to my solution for my last week by talking to you with this thought pattern. I really believe that if you do nothing, okay, that is what we term in this reality constructive, okay, positive. If we don't do any of that, we're going to get our conscious mind and our subconscious mind really playing games with us, and even taking effect, and maybe even deciding that we must die. Okay, because we're not doing anything. There's nothing there. There's nothing, no purpose in life. Okay, and purpose takes you forward in this reality. You need purpose. Okay, and as you know, for months and months, just over the last year, it was a big thing for me to get my head around, was this purpose. I wanted a purpose. Okay. And yeah, and I found a purpose, and but then when I lose purpose, okay, and I lose energy to follow the purpose, okay, and there's always something that crops up, and my purpose is largely linked to get set up, okay, and I really enjoy researching, that, and creating classes. And now, Get Set Up, it gives me 2 classes in a month to research. and it takes me basically a day or two to research a class, okay, that leaves me with too much that's just repetitive from GetSetUp. So I sent him an email today, in fact. I sent Wade, he manages the guides, okay, in GetSetUp, but he's a guide himself, okay. So I think he just gets paid an extra bit to look after the other guides. And I'm looking forward to when he wakes up, which is probably about now, to get my email, and then he'll take 24 hours, and he usually responds quite quickly. And I've said to him, listen, I believe that the people who are watching, because I did a class today called The Exciting Developments of AI. It's a repeat class. It's a class that I designed in March last year. And there's been so much development.
Yeah, it's a fast-moving space, yeah, for sure.
And their rule is you don't touch the content. He said you could tweak it a little bit, is the word they use, but don't change the content, okay? And I produced this class, well, I looked at it the day before yesterday, and I thought, oh no, this embarrasses me, and because things have changed so much. So right at the end, for the last sort of 10 or 15 minutes, I added some extra 2024 stuff, okay?
Yeah.
So, and so that's how I did it. Then I wrote him the email, and I'm waiting for the reply, because even if I don't get paid, and I said to him, you don't have to pay me, all right? I'll do it for free. Why? Because it's my purpose. Okay, I research and write. I don't even know what to call myself, but that's just what I believe. When people have finished my classes that I do, and I research, I get a lot of compliments because they get value, the viewers get value, okay? And at the end of the class, when we all just have a couple of minutes of chat live on Zoom, then I get the feedback, and that's great, but that's not why I'm doing it. I'm doing it because I love certain topics. I love researching those topics, okay? And during the day, if I suddenly come across maybe a news bulletin from one of the news channels, and well, they all do now, even Bing and everybody else has sort of the latest news. And I always skim through that. And here's something that Elon Musk has now done, for example.
Yeah.
So I click on it, then I read it. Now, I won't probably use that, but I love the knowledge. I love those. I might just keep a link to that. I did tell you 2 weeks ago that I was thinking of creating classes and just giving them to people that might be interested, or asking people, what are you interested in? And I tried that, and I tried it with all my family, all my children, and they sort of replied nebulously that, yeah, anything's fine, send me anything. That's not what I wanted, okay? So I think that idea has fallen flat. So I decided today that let's see, maybe they will give me more classes to research, even if they are repeat titles, okay? They give me, and then I can do them for free. So we're coming back to, with purpose, you take action. And with purpose and action, okay, your body is healthy, okay? It's not dependent only on the nutrition that you put into it, okay? And you move forward. But when you don't take action, and maybe one has a job, maybe we take you as an example. You've got a job, where you go to every day, and you really do want to resign and move on for whatever reason it is, but you don't, okay, because you've got fear, okay. Now, fear is the worst culprit, okay, in this whole game of motivation and purpose and action. Fear is the opposite, okay. Fear says, don't do it, don't do it. No, you can't do it. What will happen if? Don't, no, just keep the status quo, because that's what fear wants to do. So, so that's the game that we're playing, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Anyway, time for a sip of tea.
Yeah, no, I think you're onto something there. Because I was sort of like thinking that as you were talking, it's like life is like a creative unfolding, isn't it? So if your action takes the form of something that's creating, like, or creative, then that's entirely consistent with the purpose of life, which is to live.
And the opposite is also true. It'll be destructive. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. If it's
life will destroy itself.
I mean, that's the two forces, isn't it? One is to create order out of chaos, and the other one is to destroy order and put it back into chaos. They're the two forces, aren't they? So.
Yes, they are. Okay, and that's where Logos comes in, saying the actual path is neither of those two, positive or negative path. The creative or the destructive path. Okay, and really that's what we're talking about, because we've got to move forward, and we've got to, I believe, be constructive. We're not looking for this neuter path is not something you just jump onto because your mind decides it's a good idea. Okay.
So is that like the middle way that the Buddha talks about, is it? Or?
Yeah. Yes, it is. But what's happened historically is that there's always been a method to get there. Okay. And immediately, I believe, you're jumping in the wrong direction. Okay. Yeah.
Interesting. So what have you been thinking of lately? Anything exciting?
Yeah.
Been thinking about your. Sounds like you've been thinking about your purpose, have you?
No, I did that many months in last year, and I reckon if you went back on our recordings, you would see it a lot, but I'm comfortable that I have a purpose. What happens is what keeps you going on that purpose, okay? Because the way I've been feeling, let's say today, is I've been feeling down in the dumps, okay? We suggested maybe it was the heat and the heat wave and so on, which is affecting us, which it could well be, okay? Because everything plays into the pattern, but it does make me feel, yuck, it makes me, but then, you and I have a conversation like we're having at this moment.
Yeah.
Immediately I am feeling better. You know what it is. So maybe that's another aspect, is the fact that different to you, I don't see people every day. Okay. In fact, I hardly ever see people. That's it. Okay. So what I do is I've joined a couple of groups, and like a diabetes group where they talk about diabetes, and I've advocated, and I feel I have something to contribute, and also I find my sense of humor when I'm in that group. Okay. And that's great, because now you've got maybe 20 people in the group chit-chatting and so on, and somebody sort of leading the group. So yeah, that comes in handy. And then I try and do face-to-face with a lot of my children as often as I can during the month.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot to do with eye contact, and so so that's my replacement or substitute for, let's say, like your involvement. You go to work and you interact with customers and staff and management, things like that, and so I do it virtually. And that also seems to work for me. And last week, I was going for a short walk in the forest, and along came this elderly, handsome Indian guy, quite large, quite big, and walking his dog. And we both spontaneously stopped and said hi, and then we started chatting and so on, and yeah, then the next minute, the next 2 days later, he invited me to come for coffee. Okay, went to the coffee shop. We sat and chatted at the coffee shop, and I think he was more lonely than I could ever have been, because he never stopped talking. But anyway, I was a good listener, and that was fine. I felt there was a purpose, and whether we have coffee again, I don't know. We'll see. But
that's good.
It is good, yeah. And back to that human interaction, which I think is also part of not finding God, but really just seeing other people and helping other people. If having coffee with this guy, helped him sort of just feel relaxed, or maybe he was stressed or whatever, I don't know. But he was a very nice man. And so I really enjoyed listening to him and having a cup of coffee and a toasty. That's really what it is. That's a new word for me here in Australia. A cup of coffee and a toasty. It's such a logical name, but we just don't call it that in South Africa.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's good.
Yeah. So what have you been thinking about?
That's a good question. What have I been thinking about? I've been thinking about
Don't worry about that. Okay.
Sorry?
Don't worry about that ring. It's just a daily reminder to water my microgreens.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I've been thinking a lot about the Garden of Eden.
Yeah.
And what that's telling us, or telling me. So it's been a bit of a deep dive into that. So I've been doing some study around that.
So what has come out of it?
Just some interesting observations about, I suppose, like patterns. Like a lot of the stories, basically right from the first page, has these patterns that, been noticing. So, and for example, like to try and illustrate, there's quite a repeated pattern of where one becomes two or many, and then back to one. You know, so like, for example, there's Adam, and then the woman comes along, so one becomes two, and then through marriage they become one. You know, so this sort of one becomes many becomes one, and that sort of pattern repeats itself right through, you know, like I suppose ultimately to the crucifixion of Christ, you know, where the one perfect human, you know, through the crucifixion creates a new church, which is built by many, and through unification becomes one. You know, so just those sort of patterns I've been noticing.
Okay.
And it's sort of interesting in the one sense because, you know, well, you and I are very similar like that sort of thing. You know, so what does that mean? You know, and how do you act on that? You know, and just things like that. So.
Yeah. Any conclusions?
No, not really. I mean, I think it's almost a bit like quantum physics in some respects, where, you know, this idea of being separate but being one at the same time. You know, like these sort of paradoxes. You know, those seem to come up, and I think that some of those patterns probably reinforce some of those paradoxes. You know, and I sort of get the sense that in other dimensions, it might be a whole lot easier to get your head around when you're operating in, you know, the four dimensions, I guess. It always tries to lead you to separateness, you know, duality rather than unity. So I think that seems to be one of the challenges of living in this realm, is to not only think about unity, but try and experience it. Like, what does it actually mean? You know, what's it feel like to be in unison with everything?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I think that's and it's more than just a thought process. It really is one of trying to, and it's not so much try to understand, but it's to try and experience those different elements almost simultaneously. So yes, I'm separate from that tree, but when I look at that tree, what that tree exhales, I inhale. So in one sense, I could argue that it's an extension of my lungs, you know. So my lungs are not only here, but they're also out there. So just, you know, some of those sorts of thoughts, but also like yourself, thinking about God. I don't know. Like, do you have dreams very often that you recall at all?
Every night.
Every night. Are they vivid?
Different every single night.
Are they? Because I normally don't, you know, rarely sort of remember them. But it was on Monday night, I think it was. I had this. It was quite confronting. I had this dream about a big black snake, and how it came and, you know, brought itself up right into my face. You know, this great big black snake. And oh goodness, it was so clear and vivid and real. And all I can remember was thinking to myself, just stay still, and close your eyes.
Okay.
Yeah, so, but it was, yeah, it was, and like the detail that I could remember of the snake, like just how piercing its eyes were, and how threatening it seemed, but it didn't strike. It just came right up in front of my face, so.
Yeah.
So I thought, that's interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting because I also dreamt of a snake a few nights ago.
Okay.
It was an anaconda, I think, the one that squashes you.
Yeah.
And then swallows you. Okay.
Yeah.
And I could see it there, this enormous thing, sort of lying wherever it was lying, and I was thinking to myself now, would it be best to go in head first or go in? That's what I was thinking in the dream. I thought, well, if I go in feet first, I'll be able to shout, and yeah, then I woke up.
So there wasn't a thought about not going in at all. It was just which way.
Yeah, it's about how, frontwards or backwards. And I'm tired, because historically, I've got a book where I used to write my dreams down for decades now. Okay, but I haven't probably for the last decade maybe, but because I could never make anything out of them, and there was no purpose, because I couldn't make anything out of it. I tried researching what dreams mean and so on, like, example with your experience now with a snake looking in your face. I'd go look up snake and come up with what a snake means, and but so what? Now I know what a snake means in a dream, but it didn't reflect to anything in my reality at that moment. Okay, so.
So what does it mean?
I don't know, offhand. Okay. Such a time, and it really, if there was a reason of getting some knowledge again, I used to be very knowledgeable about it, but then that was probably about 20 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, isn't it? How just sort of, for no apparent reason, something like that comes along. But I wrote it down, like just the art of, the act of writing. Sometimes it helps make sense of things, but it didn't. It just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it never did with me either. I got the book. I used to do it in quite an attractive hardcover book, and yeah, and somehow dreams haven't really. I wake up remembering what I dreamt for a split second. By the time I get back from the bathroom, I've forgotten that I've dreamt really. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I suppose at this stage of my life, I don't think it has any relevance. There's.
Well, that's a good thing to sort of ponder, I guess, is that, do we need to make meaning of it, or do we just say, oh, okay, that was interesting?
Yeah, did it fit? That's where I'm sitting now. It sort of fits in another realm that you enter into when you're in dream state, and that quite honestly, the dreams are like, it's very real. You know what I mean? I might be loading straw onto a trailer and then taking it somewhere, or somebody else is driving and I'm sitting on the trailer, and so it feels very real. But
Mm.
Yeah.
But just in another dimension.
Yeah, it could be, yeah, maybe it's either, maybe it could be a previous incarnation, or it could be a future incarnation, or it could be a simultaneous incarnation. So, yeah, but they very seldom pleasant. Okay. The interesting thing is, the only time, talk about mind conditioning, the only time that they're unpleasant is when I make the mistake, either intentionally or unaware, is that I eat cheese in the evening.
Okay, yeah.
Cheese gives me what I call nightmares. Okay. Now that's dairy cheese. That's not vegan cheese. Okay. Vegan cheese has no effect on me at night time. But and even if it's totally without my knowledge, so it can't be mind over matter. Okay. Because we had the situation about a month ago where Sue made me a snackwich in the evening, and she always puts vegan cheese, but I guess we had no vegan cheese left, so she put in cheddar cheese, I think it was. Okay, that she had, and she didn't think twice about it. It just didn't say anything to me. Then I had a nightmare, and I think that's unusual for me to have a nightmare. Okay, and so I questioned her, and it came out that not, as I say, it's just she wasn't thinking about it. So I guess that has something to do with something. I'm not quite sure what it is.
Yeah, no, that is.
Yeah.
But I guess it just proves too that certain foods do impact us in certain ways as well, doesn't it? So
that I have no doubt about. Okay, no doubt at all. And so if you've got like two brains, one in your stomach and one in your head. Okay, and you really most of your brain activity does come from your stomach. So if you're keeping the microbiome really healthy in your gut, okay, particularly through, let's say, fermented foods, okay, like sauerkraut or whatever, kombucha or yogurt.
So is that like prebiotics and probiotics and things like that? Yeah.
Pre and probiotics, yeah. Which you cannot easily get from tablets from the health shop, okay? Because it doesn't have all the other paraphernalia that is needed that comes with it, okay? Yes, there is a probiotic and a prebiotic in a tablet, but it doesn't have the same effect of your emotional state at the time of eating, so yeah. So you get pre and pro and postbiotics now. So that keeps a balance, because, as you know, we have aliens in our stomach, okay, that have a totally different DNA to us, okay, and we look after them and they look after us, okay. And a lot of our thinking comes from, not thinking, but a lot of our brain activity comes from our gut, okay. And the communication.
You also wonder then what the impact of like pollution might be, because and the reason I say that is I saw it was almost like a documentary type series about the chemical company DuPont, and with the way that it used Teflon, on cookware and all sorts of things. And one of the statistics that they put up virtually at the end of it, because they're saying that it has a lot of contribution to birth defects and things like that. and they said that that scientists estimate that 99 point something percentage of the population on Earth has these molecules in the body that never leave it.
Yeah, 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 and that's true.
Mm.
And
they're like a man-made molecule too. They're not like a natural molecule, you know. Mm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But some of the other, I mean, that's like blatant. That's like almost, you could say, obvious when you get told it that happened. That it gets retained is perhaps an interesting add-on. But the type of day-to-day things, besides, you see, your microbiome adjusts itself according to your personal environment. Okay. Okay, so you know, the air that you breathe in, you know, whether you're driving to work or walking in a forest and in your garden and in your home, there's a certain unique environment that you're in, and your microbiome is sensitive to that, okay, and adapts to that, okay. So if you're on an eating pattern that is constructive, shall we say, or really caring for the different aspects of your body, particularly the microbiome, then if you eat something different, for example, let's say you eat a pizza that's been fried with vegetable oil, okay, which is unhealthy, okay. And it's very full of saturated fats, and so you have a pizza, and if you only have one, let's say in 1 or 2 in a month, okay, then your body takes care of it. It deals with that and gets rid of it, okay. But if you eat it every day, this saturated fat, it can come in different forms, okay. Mostly man-made cookies and things like that that you get. Then,
processed foods. Yeah.
Processed foods, quite right. Then you have a problem that builds up, and you don't understand why you got cancer, okay? You don't understand why you got this and that and other diseases, okay? Because, you know, you were hungry, you just ate something. You weren't conscious of the effect that whatever you're eating has on your stomach.
Yeah.
And on your brain.
Yeah, well, that's true, because as you said, you know, we have a consciousness in our stomach, don't we? I guess.
Yeah. Definitely. There's a lot. It's a really interesting reading now, the connection between the two, and I watch almost on a daily basis. Early in the morning, when you're probably going for a walk, I'm in bed listening to maybe a 2-hour interview. Okay?
Yeah.
And with basically the same interviewer, but a different doctor or scientist that has written and published a book. Okay, and so I find the scientific knowledge that has been gained in the last year about your stomach and the brain connection, and things that have been it turned out to be a fallacy. Okay, the things that we believed before, you know, really not reality anymore. Okay, because science has caught up with that sort of belief system.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems to be constantly evolving, doesn't it?
Yes, it is, and I think the for me the big mind changer, let's say in the last month perhaps, has been the fact that there's no harm in eating meat, okay, or fish, as long as when you age, you need to limit it for practical reasons, okay. You know, too much protein, for example, is a hassle for your brain, okay, and your blood, okay, and you need to keep it to a minimum. But that doesn't mean you can't have it, because you get, obviously there's protein in every plant food virtually, particularly beans and stuff like that. But you know, since I had my stroke a year ago, as you know, I cut out all meat and fish, and then I slowly, my intuition, rather than before I heard this interview that I'm referring to now, I started. I was worried about the omega-3 fatty acids that you desperately need for your brain.
Yeah.
And certainly other aspects too. And they're two aspects of the fatty acid green. So we won't go into that sort of lecture now. And so I thought, well, let me find out where the most is, okay? And I found the fish that has the most fatty acids, which is mackerel. And it has 4 times more than salmon does, okay? And you know, a lot more than sardines does, which was historically my thing. So I thought, oh, no, you know, until I understand differently, I want omega-3 in my body, but I don't want to overdo it. You see, there's omega-3 in flaxseed, for example. Okay, it's minuscule compared to, and yes, there is omega-3 in that, and you'll see a heading or something saying, you know, flaxseed has omega-3 in it. That's the truth, okay, but it has so little, and also unless you grind it, it's not going to be absorbed by an older stomach.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I'm going off at a tangent again.
No, it's fascinating. Yeah. It does raise the importance of, as you said before, consciously eating. You know, just thinking about what it is that you're putting into your body.
Yeah, and how you put it in. Yeah, you put it in with gratitude. Yeah. Okay. And it's not particularly, the quantity is not an issue I've discovered. Your body deals with too much. If you put in too much, you know, it really does deal with it. You've got to be careful with fasting, which historically I've always done, because you know, you get all these positive things about fasting and rest in the body and all the rest of it. But if you're fasting and eating too little, fasting, it's a problem. Your body now adjusts and goes into a sort of mode to accommodate that, okay, which is not necessarily beneficial to your brain and other organs. You know, so yeah, it's also interesting. Well, I find it interesting, you know.
Yeah, no, it's so true, because I think when you think about diet and dieting and fasting and all those things, they tend to be presented almost as absolutes, don't they?
Always do, you see. You know, if some scientist or doctor or something has written a book, you know, and I could probably name a dozen of them, they're making a statement in that book, okay, that is absolute. You know, they've discovered this or that, or proven this or that. They love the word proven, and they love the word scientific. And, you know, the big aspect that all of them miss is that we are individual stomachs, we individual digestive systems. And yes, we can get leads, like I say, omega-3 is good, okay, and we can eat some. But, we've got to acknowledge the response that our body gives us to that, okay. And what is healthy for me is not healthy, not necessarily healthy for you.
Yeah.
And I think a lot depends on, where you live in the world, and where your food comes from in the world.
How much water you drink, how much sleep you get.
Correct.
How fresh the air is that you breathe, all of those things.
Yeah. Now, you can't avoid it, some of those things. Obviously, the air you breathe and the water you can do certain things to filter it. But some of it is pretty well filtered in certain parts of the world. But yeah.
Interesting. Food for thought. Well, that might be a good place to leave it, I guess, isn't it, tonight?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, great chatting again.
Yeah, always, yeah. No, always. So, well, I look forward to talking to you next week.
Yeah, myself.
Very good.
Okay, go well.
Take care.
Bye.